So hi, this is David Gregory. I'm Peter Budd. I'm a professor of polymer chemistry at the University of Manchester. But we're here to talk about David Gregory's new book, Divine Windows, Seeing God Through the Lens of Science. Now, David has a degree in physics and astronomy, a PhD in atmospheric physics, and a master's in applied theology.
Yeah, spent too long at university.
He is a Baptist minister and a missioner for science and environment. And he is a regular speaker with God and the Big Bang, and of course we saw some data from them a little while ago, exploring science and faith with school children.
Yeah.
So, David, you're a Baptist minister, but in this book, you discuss ways of seeing God within other Christian traditions, in particular the use of imagery, such as the use of icons in Eastern Orthodox Christianity. Can you expand on how you value the use of images in helping people to connect with God?
Thanks, Peter. Yeah, I'm probably a very bad Baptist minister. And in some ways, a lot of theology that Baptists have is borrowed. So I kind of borrow and pick up theology as I go along. I've been involved in two areas of science which in some ways are very visual. I've been involved in astronomy. I was going to be an astronomer. I got sidetracked into meteorology. Both of them are very visual. They're both very technical once you get into an academic side of it. But anybody can engage with them because you can look up. You can look up at night and see the stars, or you can look up at day and see the clouds. And so I'm also a person who has looked up. And I think through my journey as a Christian, and part of my exploration initially in Christianity was due to that kind of, due to that, is this on? Are we on? Yeah. Part of my start of my Christian journey was because of the imagery I was seeing science produce. So imagery and creation in nature has also been a way I have engaged with science. But I was at a Baptist ministers' conference, and we were talking about worship, and we actually had a Baptist minister telling us about icons, which you don't expect Baptists to be doing, and I knew nothing about them. So naively, I asked him a question at the end of it. I said, "Can nature be an icon to enable us to encounter God?" Now he was pretty dismissive of that idea, and I understand why, because icons are never a depiction of nature; they're always focused on the person. But it got me thinking. Maybe we could connect people through the imagery in nature. And I went to an exhibition at the Natural History Museum called Other Worlds, which had these pictures from the NASA space probes, but they were blown to wall size. And as I spent 2 hours in that exhibition, and it was one of the most spiritual experiences I'd had that year. It wasn't a religious exhibition, but just standing in front of the imagery, I had a profound sense of connection with God. So it started this exploration, it started me thinking. It's gone on for about a decade. And I think we all recognise, actually, the media is awash with these documentaries on science and nature, which are full of these amazing images. So I started thinking, can we try and connect people with God through this kind of imagery? So that's how my thinking has developed. Yeah.
So you begin your book by talking about Coventry and about the idea of being sent to Coventry.
Yeah.
You mention the widely held belief that the certainty of science's understanding of the world has, in some sense, sent God to Coventry.
Yeah.
But you also suggest that in both science and faith, we sometimes have to say, we don't know. There's more to explore and experience.
Yeah.
Why do you think some people find it difficult to set out on that journey of exploration?
I think that's a really complicated question, actually, and I'm not sure if I've really come to an answer to that in the book. That's just, the idea of God being sent to Coventry by most people came up, I think, because I'd just been to Coventry with God and the Big Bang, and we'd had 150, I think, year 10 pupils in the cathedral talking about science and faith. And, you know, those statistics you saw from God and the Big Bang are fairly typical, that a lot of those kids had already sent God to Coventry because science was better. So as I was writing the book, that was a phrase that just came to mind, and it kind of resonated with my experience growing up at that age, when I kind of kicked God into touch, actually, and gave up believing in God and came back later on. You know, let me go on to that next slide. It's frozen. Matt, can you advance the slides? You know, in previous ages, when people would look at creation or the night sky, or they would look at the pictures that they see, they would, in previous ages, they would recognize something of the glory of God there. And yet, now we look at them and we don't. It's all right. And that's been going on for... That's good. That's been going on for a long time and growing, I think, for the last couple of centuries, as through the modern period, since the Enlightenment. And I like this quote from a sociologist called Peter Berger, who, 50 years ago recognised that people's experience of the supernatural in their everyday life was just a distant reality. And so, those statistics that those young people have picked up on is in the background of our society. It's the narrative of our society. And yet I like this quote as well from Timothy Radcliffe, who's a Roman Catholic, was a former head of the Dominicans. And he gave a challenge, how can Christianity energize the imagination of our contemporaries, that we, when they see these wondrous images, or see the wonder that science shows us, how can it provoke them to think something of God? So I think that's what I'm trying to do in the book, by looking at these scientific imagery, which people are exposed to, which our churches are exposed to, because it really frustrates me that in our churches now, we use lots and lots of wonderful images of nature and from science, and we put them on our projector screens, and we plaster them with the words of our songs. And we sing the songs, but we don't really take a look at the pictures. So I want to reawaken the church as well, actually, to this wonder that there is in science too. So I think that's one of my motivations for it. I don't think it's answered your question. I'm just trying to challenge it, really. Yeah.
But you mentioned Timothy Radcliffe's quote about engaging the imagination. You talk about the role of imagination.
Yeah.
Our imagination in play, play with Lego.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I love Lego.
And when reading.
Yeah.
And also in developing scientific hypotheses.
Yeah.
And God's imagination in creation. As a chemist, it seems to me that actually chemistry is an extraordinarily creative subject. A chemist can imagine a molecule that has never before existed and find a way to bring it into being.
Yeah.
In your view, what is the role of imagination in enabling people to encounter God?
I think if you read the Bible, it's a book full of imaginative images, really. Poetic passages, but often word pictures. Jesus uses word pictures, which are the fruit of just imagination, really. So I think imagination is just part of our lives. I think it's often distrusted in the faith community, because we think it's about made-up stories. But I think it's just part of being human, and maybe there's something in, we're supposed to be made in the image of God, and maybe that's part of the image of God in us, because God has an imagination to think up creation in all its beauty and its diversity. I think you're right about science. Science is full of imagination. I think we've perhaps rediscovered that in the last 50 years or so. That it's full of imagination in terms of the way you come up with an idea, an hypothesis, an experimental setup, that you come up with a theory. Imagination's all at play in that. It's not fully rational either. It's creative, just in the way art is creative. But I think there are differences in the way imagination is used in art and science. And one of the ways I express that is Oh, that's gone too far. This picture here's an imaginative picture of the night sky by Van Gogh. Here's a scientific image of the night sky taken by James Webb Telescope. It's a deep field of the James Webb. Both of those have involved imagination in coming up with them. But imagination in art actually is very different in some ways from imagination in science. Imagination in art, the artist uses his imagination. The viewer of the image also uses their imagination. The viewer may come up with a different understanding of that picture and meaning of that picture than the artist really intended. With science, once the imagination has been done and the experiment's been done, you've come up with your theory, it's fixed, it's solid, it's almost an imagination-free zone. So one of the ways I talk about that in the book is with art, when we use it, it's a bit like water flowing. It's free. But with science, actually, the imagination gets frozen at some point and it becomes fact. So if we're going to use the images of science, I think, to explore something of God in an imaginative way, we need to unfreeze the image. And again, that's an imaginative process, which we need to understand and learn how to do.
So something we often find in science as well as in art is a sense of wonder. And wonder can lead us to think about God.
Yeah.
In your book, you link wonder to playfulness and order.
Yeah.
Can you expand on the connections between these? Wonder, playfulness, and order.
I think I started to see a connection with those three themes with several different strands of thought through the ages. So Berger's statement about most people having no sense of God in their reality seems a very stark and depressing statement. But he actually saw hope. He saw hope in some experiences that people have in their lives, which he thought connected them back to the divine. And the three I've chosen to work with here are wonder, which most people experience by looking at an amazing scene, picture, the night sky or nature. Wonder, playfulness. He said we have a propensity to enjoy play and games, and he says, and explore things together, and he saw that as a connection with God. And then this idea that we like order. We don't like mess. We like order. So he saw those three themes as connecting us with the divine presence, which is threaded throughout creation. But it seems to me those three themes also explain something about science. I remember I go to a dining club called the Meteorological Dining Club. It's full of retired and senior meteorologists, and we have a nice meal, and then we have a couple of speakers about weather and climate or air pollution and things like that, have a debate. And the first time they asked me to go, it was their Christmas dinner, and I spoke on wonder in science and faith. And all bar one person in that room said the reason they got into science was wonder. And that motivated them to keep on doing, and how we need to sustain that. So science is about wonder. But science is about play, because it's about imagination. It's about thinking things up, playing with ideas, developing ideas. But it's about order as well. We bring the results of that playful exploration. We try and bring it together into a coherent understanding of universe. So I think wonder, play, and order actually captures something of science. And then going back, almost 1,000 years to a non-Baptist theology, like Roman Catholic theology, Franciscan theology, the Franciscan scholar Bonaventura said actually the first way to start to encounter God in creation is through wonder, play, the diversity, the playfulness of God in creation, and the way God brings all things into order. So there seems to be a resonance of those three themes, both from a Christian perspective in encountering God within the world of science, but also in the possibility of drawing people through their experience of, science in this case, back towards God. So that's why I brought those three themes together to explore them.
So the divine windows of this book are a series of scientific images that you treat as icons,
Yeah.
windows through which God may be found. The images include a star, our closest star, the sun, the moon, the earth, an aurora, and so on.
Yeah.
For each image, you offer a written reflection that leads us beyond the image itself. Could you read perhaps an extract from one of these reflections?
Yeah. I mean, just let me explain a little bit about why I chose these pictures. They're all from the NASA archive, which is really helpful because it's copyright free. So it's a good source of imagery. And I wanted to go on a journey, really. So I started with the sun. I went to the moon, Earthrise image taken on Apollo 8, because partially that's the reason I got into science in the first place. And then went to the Earth and explored some environmental themes around the Earth. The aurora I chose because it's a picture of the aurora from last August, taken from the International Space Station. And as the astronauts were looking down, I was lying in my garden with my wife in Milton Keynes, looking up at the same aurora. And it was a spectacular event in the middle of August. So I wanted to do that one. And then we went out to Mars because I wanted to go back out beyond the Earth, and we ended up with the James Webb image. But tonight I thought I'd just read you the Mars one, Mars reflection. If you want to read the rest of them, you have to buy the book. For sale, £10, discounted price. See me later. So I'm going to read you the Mars extract. Can I use this microphone, Matt, please? Because it'd just be easier. Let's turn that off. So this is entitled Other Worlds. In musical pieces, the cantus firmus is a repeating, often bass tune, a foundation on which other parts of the melody are overlaid. In Genesis, the repeated phrase, and there was evening and there was morning, provides a cantus firmus for the interwoven notes of the symphony of the Bible's creation story. More than a statement of the daily passing of night and day as the earth spins, it's a declaration of the certainty of God's faithfulness. In the days of exile in Babylon, when to the Jewish people life appeared to have returned to the days of formlessness and emptiness at the beginning of the story, the prophet Jeremiah speaks God's words of hope. This is what the Lord says: if I've not made a covenant with day and night and established the laws of heaven and earth, then I will reject the descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. For I will restore their fortunes and have compassion on them. Sunrise and sunset are often moments of serenity amidst a turbulent world, marking a continued creative activity of God to bring order and life. The powerful sun speaks of the greatness and glory of God as well as God's faithful care. The writer of Lamentations says, because of the Lord's great love, we're not consumed, for his compassions never fail, for they are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness. Science gives a view of creation beyond our usual human perspective. Earthrise seen from the moon is one such view. Yet here is a view that no person has experienced firsthand. Sunrise and sunset over Mars. The image was taken by the Curiosity rover slowly trundling across the surface of Mars, one of the many probes that have orbited and landed on its surface over the last 60 years. The image is an imaginative combination of two views of the same scene, looking back across its path, marked in the sand in Gale Crater, looking back to the hills of the crater wall and distant mountains 50 kilometers away. One image was taken in the morning, the other in the evening of the same day, and they've been imaginatively spliced together and coloured to capture the wonder of the two moments. Shining red in the night sky, Mars was well known to Earth's ancient peoples. Its colour led to an association with war, its imagined inhabitants threatening the earth in H.G. Wells' War of the Worlds. Yet until visited by space probes, its true nature remained much of a mystery. The creation story describes the original state of creation as formless and empty. In Hebrew, it literally means a trackless desert or a desert without water, a description that aptly describes the surface of Mars. It's an ancient landscape, a stony, rocky desert coloured red by iron oxide rust within the sand. Different, yet strangely familiar to human eyes, like rocky deserts found on Earth, or a beach scene, sand cracked by the drying sun as the tide recedes. You can imagine children joyfully building sandcastles or turning over rocks like the rover, curiously looking for what surprises lie underneath. Yet among its emptiness lies stunning equal wonder, even greater to that of the earth. Olympus Mons, an ancient volcano more than twice as high as Mount Everest, or the Valley Marineus, a canyon 4,000 kilometers long, dwarfing North America's Grand Canyon. Among Mars's battered crater's surface, reminiscent of the moon, lie hints of the presence of water in its polar caps, in clouds within its thin atmosphere, frozen deep under its surface. And carved into the landscapes are hints of a warmer, hopeful past of flowing water, rivers, lakes and seas, water stripped away through the long ages as solar wind ravaged its atmosphere, unprotected by a strong magnetic field. And perhaps, too, along with the lost water, life lost with it. From the perspective of faith, it can be hard to fathom and appreciate God's wisdom within the long history of the playful, vast wonder of the cosmos. Despite such barrenness, sunrise and sunset silently speak of the enduring, embracing faithfulness of God beyond our imagining. And alongside this steady bass tone, a dynamic, playful tune is also heard in the song of creation. For the Spirit of God was hovering, literally vibrating over the waters of creation in the beginning. In musical composition, the technique of vibrato, a rapid variation in pitch of notes, is used to evoke emotion from within the music. Robotic rovers on Mars, along with witnessing the steady cantus firmus of sunrise and sunset, have recorded the sound of the wind flowing across valleys, hills and craters of the barren landscape. If we could stand alongside the rover, we might hear the wind of the love of God that calls forth and embraces all that has been made. The spirits vibrating over a trackless desert of creation. The trackless desert calls to us too. There's talk of not only sending robots to Mars, but humans too. Is this sending out of life bringing life to a barren world, a response to the call of God's Spirit over creation, bringing forth its potential? Or is it merely the hubris of humanity, unsatisfied with shaping and breaking our world, looking to shape another in a better way? The image of love of the vibrating Spirit over barren creation resonates with another divine sending and giving. For God so loved the cosmos that he gave his one and only Son, for through him all things were made. The Son was given to bring love and life to emptiness of places and life. And through the given one, the playful tune of the Spirit gives new life to creatures able to share in the playful love of God. Peace be with you. As the Father sent me, I am sending you. Receive the Holy Spirit. The sights and sounds of Mars speak more deeply to us than to our sense of playful adventure alone. And closer to home on earth, we are invited to be open to fulfilling the potential that God places within the cosmos, and within creatures such as us. We're invited to share in bringing divine love and life to barren places, our own and others, near and far. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we have 1 minute if anyone has an urgent question for David. But you will be around for the conference.
Yep.
There's a stand over there with copies of the book for sale and also some videos that you can see online.
Yep. Great.
Right, I think it's possibly time for tea and coffee now. So, thank you.
Thank you.